Good morning and good evening, whichever part of the world you are watching. This is your host, Mike Espina, and welcome to Math Agility Live. This is our platform where students can send in their math homework problems to our social media channels, and we will answer them via Facebook Live every Tuesday and Thursday, that is PST, and Wednesday and Friday, that is Manila time. So um, tonight we have a special guest, uh, and we will discuss about m- mathematics as a key factor in making sound business decisions. After his talk of our speaker, we will have a short question and answer portion, and then we will wrap up. So you can write down your questions in our comment section below, in our Facebook account and our Twitter, and also in our Instagram account. And we will try to answer them as soon as possible. If not, we can answer them. We will send you an email, or we can message you in our Facebook account as well. So before we start with our speaker's presentation, let me briefly introduce to you our speaker. He is currently the president and general manager of RICHFELS Foods Services Inc. And he held several key positions on his previous jobs in finance as Vice President for Finance and Administration, Chief Financial Officer, and Controller to different organizations such as LBC, EDMI, and WCC Aviation Company. He is also a certified public accountant and a practicing accountant for 2 decades. He holds two master degrees. The first one is MBA, or Master in Business Administration, at the University of the Philippines in Diliman. And second one is an MBA, which is a specialization in supply chain management at Texas A&M University here in the US. He loves to travel and has been to 26 countries. So please, a warm welcome to Mr. Alex Custodio. Hi, Alex. I think you're still muted. Alex, please unmute. Okay. We didn't hear you.
Okay, Mike. So I will have to start all over again. Yeah, good morning from this side of the world, from the Philippines. So it's morning here in the Philippines. So that's how I would greet everyone. Pleasant morning to all of you. And thank you, Mike, for that very kind introduction.
Welcome.
So you are really a friend. So I hope everyone is doing great in the safe confines of their homes and offices or somewhere else safe. So Mike has invited me to speak about math, how I use it with my job or in what I do as a CFO, basically. And uh, yes, indeed, math has played a very important role in my everyday life. As an executive, I am confronted daily with a lot of challenges that calls for immediate actions relating to finance or matters that are having financial implications. Needless to say, because my job deals with numbers and analysis, math always come handy to me. And what's more interesting with my job, not only that I get to make key decisions on my level, a lot of other executives in the organization, including the president, the chairman of the board, other members of the board, are relying heavily with my counsel, the information that I provided to them before they make decisions as well. In that note, I cannot afford to make mistakes with my recommendations. I am always afraid of committing a grave mistake that would have a significant uh, implication to our business. So, my talk today is about math as a key factor in making sound business decisions. But before diving into the heart of our discussion, please allow me to share with you some business fun facts. By simply reading them, it will hardly make a sense to you. However, by applying some context and perspectives into them, I hope you will appreciate it more how a simple mathematical correlation can give further meaning and application with our lives, and especially in business. And I would like to start it off with this first fun fact that 63% of adults in America under the age of 30 want to put up their own business one day, according to a University of Phoenix report. So let's try to put some context into this. 63% of adults, that's quite a lot. Just imagine the enrollment, the student body of a university, of the school that you are studying right now, if you're a student. For example, if there is 1,000 students in that university, so basically 630 of those students under the age of 30 will one day, or are hoping to put up their own business when they reach 30 years old. So think of it as something that how it will impact to you as a prospective member of that 63%. So 630 students putting up business of their own. So if these individuals will put up different businesses, so there will be 630 different businesses. So if you are one of them, how would you be able to compete with these 630? If you have brothers and sisters who are under the age of 30, so you will already think as early as now that they will be your competition, because they also are hoping to have their own businesses later on in life. So that's how math applies to this information. Secondly, in 2009, a small business in the US filed for bankruptcy every 8 minutes. So this is putting math into this information. One business, small business, files for bankruptcy every 8 minutes. So can you imagine how many businesses are doing the same in a day, in an hour, in a year? So if there are 60 minutes in an hour, that would mean 7.5 businesses in a day that are filing for bankruptcy. 175,200 every year. So that's how important this information is as far as doing some mathematical correlation. Third fun fact, well, it doesn't really sound fun at all, actually. So there are 543 new businesses that are starting each month in America. This is according to a Yahoo survey. 543 in a month. Of course, there are some research bodies that are kind of disputing this information. But anyhow, for purposes of this discussion, again, if there are 543 businesses that are starting every month, how many businesses are being established in a year? You can multiply it by 12, and it will give you as many as 3 million businesses that are being opened up every year in the US. And unfortunately, 50% of those are expected to fail within the first year. Last year, it went down to 20%. But still, the number is huge. If you use 20% out of 3 million businesses in a year, so that's still a huge amount. Around 600,000 of businesses are closing each year in the US. Another fun fact is it takes as little as 5 days to start a business in the US, while it takes 107 days to do the same in Brazil. How does that, what do you make out of it with this information and applying math? So in the US, in a week's time, you can have your own business. You can start your own business. You can already start selling whatever product you are planning to sell. You will be very busy in just a week. However, it is a different story when you are starting up a business in Brazil. Probably similar to what we have here in the Philippines. So 107 days. How does this impact to you as a businessman? It's huge. It's a lot. How? By staying, if you are a foreigner, if you are an American doing business in Brazil, it would mean staying in Brazil for 3 months, for more than 3 months, or 3.5 months, just to be able to get your paperwork done, just to be able to secure your business permits. 3.5 months. What is the cost? Imagine the cost implication of staying 3.5 months in a foreign country. So by analyzing, by having this kind of information, it will somehow prepare you financially before going to the States, before going to Brazil. Although, you can also have a vacation. Next thing is last year, 43.7% of small businesses in the US were temporarily closed because of COVID-19. 43.7% of the small businesses. What do you make of this information, if may I ask? There is no coincidence why the unemployment rate in America was more than 20% last year. And it is because of this. Because if you translate this 43.7% out of the 30.7 million businesses in America, That's a lot. There's almost 14 million of small business in America closing shop last year. And if you multiply this 14 million, close to 14 million, assuming each small business employs 5 workers, so 5 times almost 14, that will give you a whopping 67 million of employees, of displaced workers. So this is how this 43.7, it may just appear to be, oh, just a percentage of 43.7%. But if you're putting context into that and using math to be able to find some meaning, some uh, uh, get a better understanding of how it impacted workers in America, the economy in the US as a whole, yeah, 67 million displaced workers. And lastly, you might think that this last fun fact doesn't have any percentage, any figures to show you. But let me tell you, these words speak more than the numbers that can provide. So let me read it to you. Ingvar Kamprad, founder of IKEA and one of the richest person in the world, chose to live a frugal lifestyle and shun the extravagance he can well afford. Example, he lives in a modest bungalow. He takes an economy flight when he goes out of the country. He prefers taking the public bus when traveling. There was even one time that he was almost refused entry to a hotel because he was taking a bus. The bus stops right in front of the hotel. So the people working the hotel thought that he was just nobody. The irony is he was actually going to that hotel to accept an award from the government as the businessman of the year. That's how low-key he is. So going back to what I've said, how this information provides meaning as far as numbers is concerned. Well, first thing, being frugal would mean what? Spending less. And when you spend less, most of your income, which I assume Mr. Kamprad has a lot, goes into savings. So he would probably have thought of these things, that by maintaining a frugal lifestyle, he would be able to not only set an example to everyone around him, but also not wasting money, making a lot of savings, and helping the environment. So that's how we apply as a business person, as a finance person. That's how we apply these things into what we do. So moving on, I would like to give a definition of what is a sound business decision. I don't know the demographics of Mike's cohorts, Mike's attendees to this uh, undertaking. So I'll just assume everyone would understand what is uh, business, how decisions are being made. So let me just run through a short definition. Of course, a lot of people will have uh, his own definition, but for me, a sound business decision means it is a solution selected after examining several business alternatives because the decider foresees that the course of action he elects will be better than the others to further his business goals and believes that it will be accompanied by the fewest possible objectionable consequences. So key takeaways of this definition are business alternatives, several alternatives, several choices. A good decision must be made out from several options. Another one is to further his business goals and believes that it will be accompanied by the fewest possible objectionable consequences. We make decisions to achieve our desired results or some goals. In business, there are a lot of decisions. In my level as an executive, we make a lot of decisions, and I can cite some of the examples here. Decision whether to lease or buy. What is more beneficial for the company? Is it beneficial to just lease or to buy? You can actually apply this in your own life. I have friends in New York who prefer to lease their cars than buy them. And the reason for them is it's convenient. They can change cars anytime they want. It may be a little bit costly, but yeah, it compensates for the convenience, for the desire to have new car anytime. They don't have to worry what they're going to do with the cars after it reaches a certain working life. So it goes similarly with business as well. Do we have to lease a warehouse instead of buying them? Another common example is, do we manufacture our own product, or we just simply outsource them? Which is more beneficial? This has been a very contentious issue actually in the US. So, as companies in America are outsourcing their products from abroad, from China, from Vietnam, instead of manufacturing them in the US. Another example is, should we lay off workers or not? When I was working at Jollibee, uh, I've seen a lot of decisions above my level that are being done, which somehow raise some eyebrows for ordinary people. And in case uh, you would wonder what Jollibee is the number one fast food chain in the Philippines, and it's actually in the US now. So if you're are living somewhere in California, so you must have seen a lot of Jollibee stores there. That is the state that hosts more Jollibees in the US. So I've always wondered why Jollibee would open another store just beside an existing one. So I always questioned that the rationality of such decision. Then I realized that, yeah, it's better for Jollibee to have another store nearby than to allow its competitors to take in the spillover customers of Jollibee. So decision making entails a lot of information where bottom line is what comes out of it, what benefit will come out of that decision. Moving on to the next slide, it talks about factors to consider in making business decisions. Some of these factors actually do not have mathematical implication, and I would start it with what? The availability of choices. Again, a decision that is made with only one choice is most likely not going to come out a good decision at all, because there was no choices that there were not many choices that were being presented. So there were just few information, few available data that was being analyzed. Next factor is the gut instinct. So what is gut instinct? Have you ever wondered why you would see restaurants being put up in areas where there are very few people walking around? Have you ever wondered why you would see some businesses being established in areas where you think are not suitable in those locations? My answer to that is probably the business owners or the investors who put up those investments or those businesses did that out of instincts, because relying on instincts, on God, because these instincts have no current underpinnings of hard analysis or hard analytical support. They are purely based on emotional responses. So there is no mathematical uh, exercise that's being done here. Its decisions are being made just out of your emotions. So another factor to consider in making economic decisions is data. Is data enough for a decision maker to come up with a good decision? Definitely not. Because if you define what data is, these are raw form information, information that are in raw forms. And raw form information will lead to flawed decisions. I will share you a story, my personal experience. When I was working for a politician in the Philippines, from a small town in the Philippines, he asked me to speak to McDonald's if if it could put up a branch in his hometown. So I went to the headquarters of McDonald's and discussed with them the possibility of putting up a McDonald branch in that small town. The first thing that the McDonald's people asked me are, can you give us some raw information about that small town? So right away, I told them, okay, there are 5,000 people living in that, 5,000 in America may not be small, but in the Philippines, it is very small. So there are probably 5,000 people living in that, around the area. There is one school, there is one bank, uh, the town is situated a little far off from the highway. So the McDonald's people were telling me that, are there any other information that you could provide us? Because those are information that those are information that are not so important as far as deciding whether we will approve your request. So when I went back to my employer, to my boss, I told him that the McDonald's people were asking for more data. So that brings me to the next factor. They were asking for more information, something that is more concrete, something that somehow is better than the information that I've earlier provided to them. So I gathered those information. I gathered I gathered this information, and went back again. So what are these information that I told them? So I told them that, okay, the school has has a population of around 2,000. It is a pilot school, so most of the students are well off. There is although it is just one bank, but uh, another banks have already uh, applied for a permit to open soon in that area. So it is expected that within a span of 3 months, there will be 3 more banks that will be opening there. So basically, information is an evolved or more complete data set. It is a collection of processed data where context and meaning have been added. But is that enough for McDonald's to open up a branch in that hometown? Is still not enough. And they want more information. They want some established, refined information which are being tested and validated. And that is where knowledge comes next. So going back to that example, what are the knowledge that the McDonald's people would like to share with us? They told me that McDonald's would only allow to open up a branch if the market could sustain at least $120,000 a day of revenue. They also told us that based on their legwork, although banks will be opening soon, all the enrollment is expected to increase in that school, in that pilot school, that although that town is expected to be developed further economically because it is situated next to a city, so the spillover development is going to that direction. But at that time, it is still not sufficient. It still could not provide sufficient evidence that a McDonald's store will thrive in that area. So how can we relate that to the decision-making process? One are, of course, the numbers. We did a lot of pencil pushing. We did some research. We did a lot of assumptions. And we finally decided that, okay, we'll shield our plans of putting up a McDonald's branch in that area. That's how it ended up. And the last factor to consider is the capabilities. What are capabilities? It is very important for businesses to always consider before making a decision its capabilities. I remember when I was taking up my master's in UP Diliman, and Mike would attest to this, as we were classmates back then. Okay, when a group of people, when my cohorts, when some of my cohorts would do presentations and make recommendations, it is always the uh, you would always find it in the recommendation part of uh, my classmates on how the businesses should be improved and managed. It's always uh, recommended that businesses for business to grow, they must expand. They must invest in more machineries. They must have develop more products and all. And I will always raise my hand and question them: do you have enough resources to do that? Where will you get the money to invest in machineries? Where will you get your funds? Because based on your presentation, you only have what? Few hundreds of thousands in your bank account. And where will you hire people to be able to help you with this planned expansion? So that is the last factor that we have to consider as business persons, as executives, when we make decisions. And again, does it have mathematical implication? Yes, because we're talking of numbers. We're talking of resources. So I guess Mike is signaling me to have a break. Mike, are we supposed to have to go on a break now?
If you're done with this portion, we can have like a 3-minute break.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
okay, guys. So I hope at this point you have learned a lot from Alex's presentation, and we will pause for a short break. And when we come back, we will discuss about what types of mathematics are used in sound business decisions. Okay, let me stop sharing this.
Kids dread math, but unfortunately, parents are busy juggling responsibilities and are unable to help their kids with their math homework. High school and college students find math to be difficult and need help with their math and advanced math subjects, while working college students don't even have enough time to study for their math homework. It all boils down to the fact that to ensure continuous success for students in their mathematical study, getting the right help is most important. Unfortunately, current solutions only deliver hours of math preps without spaces for students to even ask their troubling questions. We understand the flaws of these methods, and we've crafted a new solution that works for all students, even low-class junior students. Introducing the Math Agility Math Express 10, Math Express 20, Agile Max 15, and Agile Max 30. The simple but effective solutions to help students through their math difficulties and homework. At Math Agility, we are focused on providing quality tutorials and test preparations to increase the confidence of students with math concepts and problem solving. And with each subscription package, every student gets to enjoy access to math support like never before. The Math Express 10 allows students to ask 10 questions, valid for 7 days. The Math Express 20 allows students to ask 20 questions, valid for 30 days. days. The Agile Max 15 allows students to ask 15 math questions weekly, while the Agile Max 30 allows students to ask 30 math questions monthly. Now, busy parents can worry less knowing their kids have the best math help while in high school. College students and working college students can get the help they need with their homework. Getting started is easy. Simply create an account, log in, choose a subscription package, pay, and that's it. Start asking your math questions and get the help you need. Visit www.math-agility.com.
Okay, welcome back. I'm giving you again the floor to Alex to continue with his presentation. So let me just open up again the PowerPoint. Just give me a second.
Okay, hi Mike again. I hope I'm a bit relaxed now. I've never done this for the longest time.
Okay.
So and it's very not normal for me to just be sitting while talking and confined in a very small area.
Okay.
So yeah, I hope everyone can and bear with me. So hopefully, as we go along, I'll be a bit relaxed and we'll have a better flow of what we are discussing. So yes, again, welcome back to our second part, and in here we are going to talk about the types of math that we use, that I use for that matter. So everybody thinks, or everybody might have, or everybody thought that we accountants are genius mathematicians, that we use sophisticated mathematical equations. To tell you the truth, we are not. Accountants simply use simply use mathematics that are easy to understand. Mathematics that grade school students do and practice. We are not math geniuses. And these are the types of math that we do. Number one, of course, is addition. We do 1 plus 1. We do 3 plus 2. We add daily sales to be able to come up with the monthly sales. We make a summary of all the monthly sales from January to December to come up with a yearly figures. That's how simply we do these things. To get that annual sales report, annual sales figures, just simply add the daily, the monthly, and that's it. Do we do subtraction? Of course. We subtract, we anticipate how much income we are going to make, how much net sales we're going to make. If we provide this percentage as a discount to people, how sales and returns and how sales returns and allowances will impact the net revenue. We deduct expenses from revenues for us to be able to come up with how much profit did we make for the whole year, for the month. So addition and subtraction are part of our daily lives. Multiplication, yes, of course, again. We multiply tax rate to the tax base, to the how much uh, tax are we going to remit to the government. We multiply interest rates to the loan that we apply from the bank. How much interest rates are we going to pay every month? How much interest rates are we going to pay in the year? So that's how multiplication applies to us. Division, of course. If we're borrowing $10 million from a bank with an interest rate of 5%, so how much monthly amortization are we going to be remitting to the bank? You just simply divide them. Percentages? Yes, of course. Percentages comes handy when we compute for growth rates, for cost plus functions. If we wanted to follow or use simple procedures like putting up a certain percentage to a base amount, like, okay, we want to increase the salary of our employees next year. And it is agreed that we provide them with a 10% increase. So we just simply multiply them to do how much they're getting now. So if the salary totals to $100,000, multiply it by 10% for next year, so you will have a budget of 110,000 salaries for next year. Next is ratios. So what are ratios? It may sound a little bit complicated to ordinary people, but actually they really are simple. So common ratios that we use, that I use in my job, are, of course, the cash ratio, the current ratio, acid test ratio, debt ratio. Those are just some of them. But like, okay, what is the purpose of ratios? Mostly, it serves as points of comparison. We do ratios because we want to compare how we were doing last year, how a business current liability in relation to how much do they have in the bank. We achieve it by doing ratio. And I'm specifically talking about the cash ratio as an example. It gives us the information on how much, I'm talking about cash ratio specifically, how much cash available at the bank is being allocated to pay for maturing obligations, for your current liabilities. Another example is the current ratio. What is a current ratio? A current ratio is measuring your current assets over your current liabilities. What is its importance? Being able to determine an ideal current ratio would save the business from failing to pay its obligations. So if you have a current asset that is equal to your current liabilities, so I'm talking about of a 1-to-1 ratio, it would mean that any maturing obligation, there is a corresponding asset that is being reserved, that is being allocated to pay for that. So if you don't do ratio and just manage your businesses by simply looking at it the way it is, by simply doing things that comes in whatever form and ways, there is a tendency that you will have fewer or little asset at hand than your liabilities. Just say, for example, if your current ratio, if your current asset is $100,000 and your current liabilities is $200,000, if you compute for the current ratio with those figures, it will give you a 0.5-to-1 ratio. What does that mean? It means that you have 50 cents in every, you have 50 cents of asset in every $1 liability that you have. So with this information at hand, you should be able to already do some planning on where to find that deficit of 50 cents just to be able to pay for that $1 liability. So in my job, in our job, this is very important. Or else we'll risk defaulting payments, or else we'll be put in a situation where we are going to suffer financially. So another example is debt ratio. I can actually give you a lot of ratios because there are so many ratios that we use in our day-to-day affairs, in decision making. We have what we call liquidity ratio. We have what we call leverage ratio. We have efficiency ratio. We have profitability ratio. We have market value ratios, name it. We have a lot of those. We use a lot of those. And each ratio, each type of ratio has its own purpose. Liquidity ratio, for example, will give you information in how to address liquidity problems. It will give you information on how much asset is to be maintained to be able to pay off your liabilities. An example of those liquidity ratios are the ones that I've just mentioned earlier. You have the cash ratio, you have the current ratio, you have the acid test ratio as well. All of these ratios are under the liquidity ratios. Leverage ratio, it measures companies' debt levels. So if you are the president of a company, how would you like your debt structure to appear, or your equity to appear? Would you like to have debt as a little portion of the whole equity, of the whole capital? How much is current? How much is short term? And how much is long term? So it will help you a lot in making a decision. It will complement with your personality. If you are someone who is averse in acquiring loans, then yeah, you must have this thing in mind always. You must have this information readily available every time you ask for it from your staff, every time you ask for it from your chief accountant. Yeah, it must be it must be provided to you right away. Efficiency ratio. Oh yes. We always use them when we measure performance, when we compute for bonuses. These are reliable tools for us. Examples of efficiency ratios are the asset turnover ratio, wherein we compute net sales over average total sales. So it will provide you how much dollar is being earned of every dollar that was invested into the business. Another example is the inventory turnover ratio, wherein the cost of goods is divided by the average inventory. What is this? What is the significance of an inventory turnover ratio? Very much. It will help you realize how fast is a stock converts from the warehouse to your point of sale, to the counter. How fast is it being sold? How long does it stay? How long does it stay in your warehouse? So this is very important, because keeping a lot of inventory, or keeping inventories very long in the warehouse, is very expensive for the business. So you must have this information readily available for you. If it will require you to prepare a monthly inventory turnover, a weekly turnover ratio, then so be it, because that is how important it is for you to be able to manage your business very well. Another example is measuring return of investment. Which is done by dividing net income over cost of investment. How much, how much it will answer the question of how much money will I make every month, every year for an investment that I am making. How long will it take for me to recover that amount of investment? If I'm going to invest $1 million today, how long will it take me to recover that $1 million? If I am going to receive, if I'm going to get 100,000 a year as income out of that investment by using ratios, it would tell you that you're only getting 10% every year, annually, for that investment. Is it good? Is it desirable? Is a 10% return of investment sufficient? Is it good enough for you? Well, it varies. People have high expectations. Some people don't have. Some people are contented with lower rate of returns, but there are others who cannot accept this rate of return. So that's how very important it is for executives, for people like me, because we are always faced with investment opportunities. I will share you a story, my personal experience, just recently, happening just recently. I've left a job, a high-paying job in Manila as the chief finance officer of a holdings company based in San Pedro, Laguna, or in a province south of Manila. For a business opportunity. Business opportunity in the sense that I have a friend who offered me some capital and asked me to put up a business in whatever type that I think would be good. So after doing some research, after doing some studies, I finally realized that, oh yes, I think I would be better off to accept this offer from a friend and try my hands at in going into business, which is the first time that I'm doing. I've been a corporate slave for the whole time. So what are the tools that did I use to be able to come up, or to be able to made me realize that I will be better off accepting this offer from my friend than having to continue working as a CFO in that holdings company? It's the help from the old reliable tools such as ratios, such as addition, subtraction, those little things. And when my principal asked me for some paperwork, when I did the presentation to him on what business is to undertake, I gave him all these return of investment assumptions. I gave him a summary of how much cash inflow are we going to make from the first year to the next 5 years. I presented him a lot of alternatives, a lot of business choices. We were supposed to invest in a trucking company. Well, these are the choices that I gave him. An investment for a trucking company, an investment to franchise an existing restaurant concept and bring it somewhere else in the Visayas or in the southern part of the Philippines. I presented an investment for an upstart or a soon to be put up hospital in the north. I presented him a business opportunity relating to putting up a medical laboratory and dialysis center. I presented to him an opportunity, a business opportunity that provides lending to upstart investors. So there were 5. Out from that 5 choices, we settled with 2. We settled with the investment relating to the hospital and the one with the restaurant as the master franchisee of a restaurant concept. Why did we choose that? Why did we finally choose those 2 opportunities, disregarding the other 3? Because for us, those are the businesses that offer high returns, bigger opportunities for us in terms of expansion, in terms of bringing in or linking in the business that my partner and my principal has in the States. We chose that because we chose this master franchising concept because of its potential to bring to a bigger area. And solely we use the information that we've come up from the ratios, from assumptions, from sedition, all these things. There was no use of sophisticated formulas for the information, for the knowledge that we wanted, and finally decide to pursue these types of businesses. So going back to the type of math that we use, from ratios, of course, we also use trends. What are trends? So if you have an increasing debt to asset ratio, it may indicate that a company is overburdened with debt and may eventually be falling or be facing default risk. So in business, in my job, using trend is very important. It gives us an idea on where a certain aspect of what we do is heading towards or is heading. And if it is not good, so we can simply do some adjustments. And lastly, Aside from addition, from subtraction, from multiplication, from division, from percentages, ratios, trends, last one is we rely on formulas. Again, formulas in business, formulas in what I do are the simple formulas. You cannot find the same formulas that scientists do in their laboratories. No, our formulas in business are simple. They are long established formulas. They are standards. And examples of them are, one is, the formula of deriving a net income. How is it computed? Very easy. You just simply deduct your expenses from your revenues. So what are revenues? Of course, these are what people pay to buy for your products. If you have few products, chances are you will have less revenues. If you have more products, chances are you will have bigger revenues. Another example is, of course, the old and reliable accounting equation. It is a formula. How do we compute them? We simply determine how much asset, and this asset must be equal to your liabilities and your equity. Another is the formula of computing for your cost of goods sold, or the COGS. Back in college, I find it confusing and a little bit harder. But now, as I have been doing this for the longest time, it is becoming very easy. So by computing for cost of goods sold, you just simply determine how much inventory is at the beginning, add all the purchases that you have made during that period, and then you deduct how much is the ending inventory. And it will give you how much is your cost of goods sold. How important is determining cost of goods sold? I'll give you a perfect example. When I was working as a Jollibee manager, we have a very robust control of our inventories. We would know right away if there are anomalies. We would know right away if there are wrongdoings inside the store by using this formula. Every day in Jollibee, we will always have a summary of our beginning inventory of each product. Like, for example, chicken. So before the operation starts, we have a summary of how much chicken was left from the previous day. And that serves as our beginning inventory. Then we add whatever deliveries that we received for today. That gives us how much chicken, how many chicken is available for cooking or for sale as of that period, as of the time. Because it is very busy in the store. Of course, there is no way for us to know how many chickens were cooked and how many chickens were pieces of chicken came out to the counter, were sold. And we would only find that out at the end of the day when we close the operation. We were able to determine, we were able to pull out the summary of sales, or the sales report, wherein it will mention how many pieces of chicken were being sold for the day. So, for example, we had a beginning inventory of 1,000 pieces of chicken. And there was a delivery that was made of 500. So total of 1,500 pieces of chicken that is available for sale, that our crew can cook and bring it on to the customers. At the end of the day, when we do our ending inventory, 500 of those, out of the 1,500, 500 of those remain on hand. So easily, by subtracting your 500 ending inventory out of the 1,500 available pieces of chicken, it will tell you that for that particular day, you've sold out 1 pieces of chicken to your customers. Very good. For that day, it's a good number. For that day, you've sold out 1,000. On the first look at this information, it will tell you that, oh, sale for that particular day was robust. You've sold 1,000 pieces of chicken. Is this information enough for you? Can you rest easy, fully knowing that 1,000 came out of the kitchen for that day? How will you be able to verify and confirm if it is really the number that is being registered in your cash register? So what we do is we compare it against the sales summary. And the sales summary will tell you the real number of chicken, pieces of chicken that came out of the counter. In Jollibee, it is uncommon that a discrepancy occur between the number of chicken that was cooked from the kitchen and the number of chicken, or the pieces of chicken that came into the cash register. The number of pieces of chicken that came into the register is usually lower than how many pieces of chicken that were cooked and came out of the kitchen. So what will it tell you? It would mean that some of those chicken came out of the kitchen, came out of the counter for free. That's why in Jollibee, in many occasions, we would terminate people from the counter, from the kitchen, from the dining, because of these things. So by having a full understanding and knowledge of formulas, long established formulas, you can catch up, you can stop wrongdoings, you'll be able to know right away what adjustment has to be made to better improve your operation. So another example of formula is determining break-even points. It may sound a little bit complicated. For normal people, they will probably think of, well, is it possible to be able to know right away beforehand how much is the break-even point? Of course, with the help of formulas. How do we do that? How do we do that? We simply just identify how much is the total fixed cost by your contribution margin. What is a contribution margin? Contribution margin is your selling price less your variable cost. Oh, you might tell me, oh, Mr. Custodio, you have just mentioned a lot of things already, and it's not possible for us to remember them. Yes, of course. I don't expect you to remember those things. What I'm emphasizing is formulas can provide you an easy way to be able to anticipate and plan and design on which approach to make to be able for you to achieve your goals, your business goals. I would like to go back again I would like to discuss further this break-even point, because yeah, I remember one time when I was doing consulting, when I was still doing my consultancy works, I received a very surprise reaction from a client when I presented him this formula of determining break-even point. So why is determining break-even point important? It will give you an idea on how much level of revenue are you supposed to make to at least even out things, meaning your expenses will be covered by how much sales you are making. So you can already do some adjustments on how much revenue should you make. And what are these adjustments? Your pricing. You can do already some pricing adjustment. Are you going to go price it a little more, a little less, for you to be able to get that desired revenue? Will you introduce a new product? Will you offer discounts? Will you be served good if you bundle up some items together? Those kind of things. So that break-even point formula is really very helpful. You can even This formula will even help you achieve some level of profits that you desire. If, for example, you want a 20% profit to make after paying out these expense bonuses, yeah, this formula is very helpful. And related to that, of course, you have the markup formula, the profit margin formula, those kind of things. So going back to this is going back to this specific, this particular slide. Again, let me just emphasize, in business, in what I do as a finance person, we are not using sophisticated mathematical equations. We are only using simple math. We are using addition, the things that we've been doing, things that we do when we were in grade school, when we were in high school. So the only kind of difficult in this particular slide, or in this math aspect of math, are of course the ratios and the formulas. But hey, you can just simply, you don't have to memorize all these things. We don't memorize them anymore. Yeah, back in college we do, but now we don't. This information, these are readily available in the internet. You can always go back to your books, old reliable books, to be able to use them. So I would like to move on to the next slide by telling you and emphasizing, I cannot overemphasize that, yes, math in business is not difficult. It is just simple math. Now that brings me to the next slide. How does math apply in investment decision making? I've already mentioned you some of the things that I do. So I'll probably be mentioning things again, similar things again. Because this slide is somehow an application of the things that I do. So I would like to start by asking you, how many among you have read stories about some lotto winners that squandered their millions of winnings just after a year of unfettered spending? There was even a show in the Philippines that featured this story. A family man who won the lotto enjoy his riches for a very short period, and immediately went back to being poor again. That particular story rings a bell to this particular slide. How does math apply investment decision? How are you supposed to manage your finances? How are you going back to that particular example of the man winning the lotto? If that person had some financial literacy, probably he wouldn't suffer that fate of being back to what he was before. Please take note of the word financial literacy. What is financial literacy? For me, it is simply about learning a thing or two about funds management. Oh, you will probably ask me, learning something about funds management? For an ordinary guy like me, how will I be able to do that? Will I be able to achieve that in a very short period of time? If it takes years for a finance person like you, that's me, 2 years of MBA, two degrees of MBA, so how will a regular guy learn financial literacy in a very short period of time? Well, if you don't have time to spend for reading, for attending seminars and classes, for you to have an insight, for you to get an insight of financial literacy, you can always hire an individual, a very trusted one, who can help you with managing finances. You can always consult a financial advisor, which is, by the way, very common nowadays. You would see a lot of people introducing themselves as financial advisor. These are not the people that these are not the financial advisors that I'm recommending to. I'm referring to financial advisors who are not connected to a specific company offering a specific product like insurance, because these people, these financial advisors, are what I call shadow financial advisors, as they don't normally provide you a vast array of information. They are single-mindedly convincing you, providing you information that is tailored for you to buy their products. So those are not the financial advisors that I'm telling you about. So that is for individuals. In business, like in my case, in a corporate setting, making financial investment decisions are easy. Not only that you have the resources at hand to provide you all this information that you need, you also have oversight committees that can tell you if it is good, if it is right, if it's not, or otherwise. So you have people, you have departments that will check, that will go over your proposals and all. So under this slide, I have listed a lot of things wherein one can base upon his decision making. So first and foremost is the financial roadmap. What is a financial roadmap? A financial roadmap is a simple, useful guide to help you remember your financial priorities, your short-term goals, your long-term goals. So it is basically telling you what are the choices that you're going to make while having these financial resources at hand. Like going back to that example that I gave you for that person who won that lotto. A financial roadmap would have helped him in planning what to do with his winning. He could have probably, of course, allocate a portion of the winning to build a house. He could have probably allocated an amount to buy some luxuries like a car. He could have allocated a portion of it to give away for friends, for relatives. He could have allocated a portion of it for savings. He could have allocated a portion of it for investments. That's how he should have done a proper financial roadmap. In my case, because corporations, because companies would always desire to grow its business. There is always a desire to expand, how to double up our revenues, how to achieve that status of being the top 5, being the top 10 in the category, in the business category that we are in. And while having all these plans, while having all these ambitions, we only have this much of funds available for us. So having a financial roadmap enables me to plan ahead. If there is an instruction to invest, to expand, to acquire, to put up a branch somewhere else, and the resources that I have are not sufficient to support, to cover this expansion, then I would already make some moves, find some ways to be able to cover the funds that I lacked. So that is financial road mapping. Next is risk tolerance. How does math apply in risk tolerance? We have people we call risk averse. People who don't want to engage into something that provides higher risk. You have people, you have heard about people having millions of pesos, having millions of dollars in their bank accounts, sitting idly in their bank accounts. And you might wonder, is it good to keep your your cash in the bank, or invest it into something else? You cannot blame these people who prefer to keep their money inside the bank, because they probably feel safer to have their money just sitting idly, receiving immediate a very low interest rate, because yeah, they fear that if they would invest it somewhere else, they might probably lose it. What if the business that they are investing on gets bankrupt? So, how does math apply into this? For people like us, we always consider that risk determines the level of returns. If you're investing in low risk opportunities, the return will also be low. And if you invest in high risk undertakings or endeavors, the return will be high. So, applying math into that, using percentages, will you choose a deposit in the bank that offers you 1% interest every year, or an investment opportunity a little bit risky but still safe, that will give you 10%, 20% of return? So the decision is up to you. And if you ask me, I will choose the high risk investment opportunity, because I am a risk averse person. I'm a risk taker person. And that's how I was brought up. But of course, engaged in going into some risk undertakings, we have this thing we call calculated risk. We make sure that safety nets are there. There are parameters that are being followed. So yeah, that's who I am. That's how I practice that calculated risk thing. Next is diversification. Again, how does math apply in diversification? But what is diversification? In business, we have a cliche that says, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's how this diversification works. So, in math, it means spreading out your resources. Divide them equally or not, it's up to you. Diversification in business is investing in different types of businesses that offer opposing returns. Why would you invest in businesses that offer opposing returns? Like, you have a business when this specific type of economic condition loses, and another business with the same economic condition brings in more profit. That's what I meant about opposing returns. And by diversification, you are preventing the business to incur more losses if you have just invested in that one particular type. So how does, again, math apply to this? Again, You divide, you subtract, you use percentages, you compute for returns in each of the business that you are getting into. Next one is paying off costly undertakings. How does it come into the picture as far as applying math in investment decision? I will share you a story. My brother, he's got some windfall, and I mean some bonuses, huge bonuses, huge bonus at one time. And he was asking me what to do with the money that he had. The first thing I asked him, do you have payables that you are settling today or nowadays? He told me, yes, I have an unpaid credit card payable. Something that is charging him 2% every month. So I told him, okay, so if you have an existing loan that charges you 2% every month, which means 24% a year, you better first pay that off before you go into any investment undertaking. Because, and then he told me, no, I want to utilize these resources for me to be able to get more. So I told him 24% of interest with your existing loan, that is too far high than what you would expect to earn for any investment that you are going to make. You will be lucky if an investment will give you 15% return a year. So, how does math apply into this? Again, those things that I've mentioned. Another one to consider is the highest yield. Of course, that is the reason why we want to go into business. And among the choices that we make, among the choices that are being offered to us, among the alternatives that are being offered to us, we chose and pick the investment that gives us the highest expected yield. How do we do that? We simply, again, use some tools and formulas like return of investments, like rate of return. Well, it may sound simple yet, but there is some complications. There are some, well, I wouldn't say complications. It's easier said than done in determining how much returns and yields are we going to make for a particular investment. It requires a lot of pencil pushing. It requires assumptions. It requires determining your level of acceptance on how long would you like to have your investment being recovered. Would you like it be recovered within 5 years, within 10 years? There are businesses, well, actually, those returns, I'm already moving forward to the next point, which is the fastest return. But well, in a nutshell, these two are actually related to each other. So yeah, it depends on. I was once this this business that we are planning. They are getting into this restaurant, this franchisee, master franchisee of a restaurant concept. This business actually gives, based on my computation, this actually offers us a return of investment of 1.5 to 2 years. And we're talking about around 15 million pesos, roughly around $300,000, 1.5 to 2 years assumed rate of return. So with that kind of rate, that means this investment that we are getting into is giving us almost 75% yield of investment. So that's how important math is when making investment decision. Lastly, when making investment decision, you always have to consider and avoid the circumstance that will lead to fraud. In finance, if an investment opportunity that offers a return that sounds too good to be true, most likely it isn't true. Most likely it is a fraud. On a personal level, I have been approached many times, many occasions, by acquaintances, even by some friends and relatives, who are offering me investment opportunities that are promising 50% returns a year. And even before they could finish their pitch to me, I would right away shut them down and tell them that it's fake. It's not true. There is no such thing as 50% return on investment, especially of the type of business that you are representing with. It's a scheme. It's a scam. That's what I always tell them. So, how does math help you avoid investment opportunities that offer falsehoods, that offer fake returns, that offer scam? By simply doing simple computations, by doing comparisons, by fully knowing that, by understanding that if bank can only offer 1% a year, if a certain investment, average investment, will provide you 10%, 15% return, where the hell on earth will that 50% return come? So that's how I would end this slide. By again understanding just simple mathematics to be able to make a decision that will further your lot, that will strengthen your wealth, that will give you peace of mind, and things like that. Now, let's move on. The next slide. I'm probably boring you. I hope I'm not boring you guys. So how does math apply in day-to-day business operation? The previous slide, we use math in making business decisions. In some in situations where planning is very important, the stakes are very high. This particular slide will bring us to how math applied in our day-to-day operation in a business setting, in an office setting. So for many of you, an office may appear to be simply a place where people come in the morning and leave in the afternoon, or where people simply come and go. But however, or for person like me, for financial person like me, going to the office every day is a challenge. Meetings are done left and right, ranging from the mundane to the serious ones, from what I call value-adding meetings to just socializing. I sign documents, I review documents, I approve requests and all. I make sure that every day I'm abreast with what's going on around me, not only inside the office, not only inside the business, but as well as the business surroundings, outside. How are my competitors doing? How's the economic condition is faring? So that's what I do every day. I approve documents. I approve proposals. My last job with that holdings company in San Pedro, Laguna, I was new there. Barely 2 months into working, the president of one of the companies under that holding company called me. She told me, "You know what, Alex? We've just been told, we've just been informed by the chairman, by the owner, that all proposals, all documents that require his signature will have to be reviewed, will have to pass through your desk and have your signature, have you initialize the document before he would sign." So for some people, going to the office is just very routine. For me, it is not. I make sure that everything goes smoothly, that the finances of the corporations are stable. We have sufficient cash in the bank to pay for maturing obligations. I make sure that loan proposals, we get the best of any loan proposals, that the banks are not taking advantage on us. I make sure that sales proposals are not disadvantageous to our company, that we are not offering, that we are not giving our arms and legs to our customers already. Those kind of things. So, in the day-to-day operation, I make sure that everything runs smoothly. And when I say things are running smoothly, I mean that our revenue are optimized and our expense are monitored and controlled appropriately. How do I do that? How does math come into the picture as far as revenue optimization is concerned? How do we optimize revenue? By using mathematical tools. Pricing. Pricing controls level of revenue. You increase the price, you'll increase your revenue. You decrease the price, it will give you less. So how do you control price? Is it just easy as, okay, reduce the price by 10%? We're making a promotion? Yes, you can do that. But it must be done in a manner that is sustainable for the business. You cannot just continue providing discounts to all your products whole year long, as it will erode your brand. Another is by anticipating demand, by understanding demand. So how does this demand thing come into the picture as far as math is concerned? You can simply make an analysis on the demand profile. Who are your buyers? What can you break your buyers down into segments? So percentages, 20% of that are people with a 20 years below age, and 5% of that are professional. 20% of that are 60 years, are senior citizens. So that's how you analyze demands, and that's how math comes into the picture. You can also apply mathematics by managing revenue streams. What are revenue streams? So these are basically the sales, the revenues that comes in, that flows in every day, every month, every year. It could be from revenue made from online selling. It could be revenue that came from direct selling. Those kind of things. I just spoken to a former crew of mine who is now a branch manager of a Jollibee. And in light of what is happening now, with all the restrictions that are in place for businesses such as Jollibee, wherein dining is limited to a certain percentage of people who are allowed to dine in, and in light of many Jollibee stores closing. So I asked him about how much percentage of online ordering or delivery does he get daily. He told me that as of the time, 30% of Jollibee's revenue in the branch of his comes from online ordering. So by understanding the composition of your revenue stream, that 30% of that comes from this and 20% comes from that, you'll be able to make a decision or do some adjustment that will further increase or optimize that particular stream. So that's how math comes handy as far as understanding demand is concerned. And of course, you have your marketing strategies. Again, marketing strategies. Where will you put math into that picture of marketing strategies? Very easy. When we talk about marketing strategies, we are talking about huge capital allocation, huge expected return, huge tax benefits. If you are aware of the Philippine Basketball Association, you would realize that a lot of teams who are playing in that league are actually owned by just one company. What's the rationale about it? What rationale can you pick out from that strategy? And we know how expensive it is to maintain a basketball team in that level. The salaries alone of the basketball players. So how does math come into the picture out of this marketing strategy? A lot. You make sure that you balance and even make more beneficial, of course, that what you spend on marketing strategies is that what you will make out of introducing, of offering, of coming out with a marketing undertaking, the revenue that you will make out of it must be way, way more than what you are going to spend. So it's simple of addition and subtraction and division and those kind of things. Let's move on to the next one, which is expense monitoring and control. Expense monitoring. Is there math in expense monitoring? Of course. Because when we talk about expense monitoring and control, the first thing that we do is we make a budget. And making a budget, preparing a budget, requires a lot of mathematics, a lot of additions, a lot of subtractions, a lot of multiplications, a lot of using trends and ratios and analysis. When we make budget, we make assumptions, and these assumptions that have financial implications. For example, monitoring your monthly expenses, your annual expenses, your operating expenses. So what you do is you identify one by one these expenses. You set an amount on how much is going to be allocated. And then when the time comes that the operation, and when the business is already operating, so you compare whether the actual matched up with what was provided, what was set up. So again, there is comparison, there's ratios. It gives you an idea on what to do again. So that's how it is as far as the day-to-day operation. But lastly, let me just bring this up, that although it may sound that as simple as, okay, it is just a day-to-day operation, this is what they do, this is what they do. No, a day-to-day operation, a day-to-day affair in the office or inside a corporation is actually just an execution of what has been planned long time ago. There has been a strategic meeting beforehand. Like for example, for 2021, okay, of course, the day-to-day operation starts January 1, 2021 and ends on December 31, 2021. But there has been plans that have been made and laid out beforehand how this 2021 should turn out to be. There has been revenue forecast made for this year that was being done as early as August from the previous year. Expenses have already been determined long beforehand, before January comes into effect. So it's really just a matter of executing, operationalizing what has been laid out, what has been planned beforehand as far as this particular slide is concerned. So I guess with that, Mike, we're due for our last break, and I'll try to breeze through with the remaining slides so as not to bore our guests.
Okay.
You look sleepy already, Mike.
No, no, I'm not. It's very interesting. So I'm taking notes actually.
Okay, so are we due for our last break?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll take a short break, and then when we return, we'll discuss the sustainability of businesses, right? How to apply math in ensuring sustainability. So we'll be back in 3 minutes.
If you are weak in math or have less time studying because of work, then Agile Max and Math Express will be immensely helpful for you. Using Agile Max and Math Express is something easier, and you have to follow these steps. For creating an account, log into www.math-agility.com. Click the icon on the top right corner. There will be an option available for creating account. After clicking the Create Account, this page will appear. You have to fill all the details, like first name, etc. Check the box, I am not a robot, and then click Submit. You will receive an email about account confirmation. For existing customers, first click the icon to log in. Input your details. You will see an option of subscription and click Subscription to choose the package that will fit your needs. The subscription package will show different variants of Math Express and Agile Max. Click Buy Now of the product you want to purchase, and then click View Cart, and then click the Checkout. After this, input your billing address and click Continue to Payment. Choose Payment Method and then click Pay Now. Click Math Agility to go back to your account page, or click Continue Shopping to buy more. For updating the Student Dashboard profile, click the Student Dashboard and fill up your information. Asking math questions by students. To ask math questions, click the Ask Questions and choose your subject. You can type your question and can attach a file. You can view your posted questions in the question list and the remaining unused questions. When you click View from the question list, this page will appear. The math experts from Math Agility can see the questions and can reply with a solution. When students click View, they will see this page. If the student is satisfied with the solution, then they can click on the Close Questions.
Okay, we're back again. So Alex, you can continue. I'm sharing again the slides. Just give me a second.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Welcome back again to this session. So I feel energized. So I guess some of you already are now it's probably way past your bedtime. So please bear with me. I still have a few more slides to go, but I'll try to go fast with the remaining slides. As I don't want you to be dreaming about me in a bad way. So again, as CFO or as Chief Finance Officer, in terms of ensuring sustainability of the business, I just actually play a supporting role. And when I say supporting role, all the supporting, but it is really very important. And when I say supporting role, I mean I make sure that I quantify all the below undertakings. That's my role. Because in this particular slide, these things have great financial implications for the business. Which is normal, which is expected, because these are the things that will sustain your business and give and bring you more to your closer to your goals. So how does math apply in ensuring sustainability? Let's identify what should a business do to make sure that stays in the business and grow beyond the years beyond I mean, for a long time. So first and foremost is value delivery. What is value delivery? Value delivery is simply giving the maximum value to the customer, delivering what is being promised by ensuring that you have the best products, by ensuring that by availing those products, it gives the best benefit to the customers, that it has attributes desired upon by the customers. Take, for example, when you ride in an air, when you take a flight, when you ride an airplane going into other places, have you ever wondered why people are willing to pay for a huge amount to sit in some portion of an aircraft? When I was still traveling to Dubai, it was a policy of the company that I was working with that for flights longer than 4 hours, all its executives must take business class. That was my first experience with Emirates Airlines. Blow me away in terms of service delivery. The seats are comparable to your bed in your house. The food is great. The experience is just overwhelming. From ground up in the air. And even from the service that Emirates provide you right after reaching your destination in Dubai. They have limousines that are ready that you can use, that will bring you to your hotel. And when you board in Dubai using Emirates, by way of business class or first class, you're actually being served in a different counter. So delivering value is very important for sustainability. And where is math in this particular action plan? Ensuring value delivery is expensive. Because the company is spending a lot to obtain the best satisfaction from the customer. The company also makes sure that the customer pays for it. We make sure that the cost of value delivery must be less than the amount that the business would make out of it. But how? How will the business make more money if it's spending more expense? Of course, it will what? Result to loyalty. Well, actually, in all of these things here listed here, the rationale and the benefits are the same. No? Because when we talk about sustainability, it actually requires investment, investing, spending. And by that, when we continue the spending, it will be sustainable anymore. So to balance this out, to balance it out, our goal is, if we're spending $1 for these endeavors, for these activities, we make sure that that dollar will give us back $2 or $3 in return. So that's where how math applies to this particular slide. But I would just like to go through them one by one. So next to value delivery is the client satisfaction and increased footprint. So it will result to loyalty and customer loyalty of customers. It will increase revenue because increasing footprints, meaning expanding to other places, getting more sales. Next is clear articulation of goals. What is clear articulation of goals, and where does math come into the picture for this particular exercise? And what is clear articulation of goals, by the way? Clear articulation of goals is the vision, the mission of the companies, the things, the core values that it stands for. Coming up with this mission, with this vision, with articulation is costly to the company. Just organizing a 3-day, 4-day strategic planning to design a mission or a vision is very expensive. To hire consultants to help you in articulating your mission, in crafting your company mission and vision. Oh, that's a lot of money. And articulating them is another one. Just in the University of Santo Tomas, where I used to teach, every room there has frames, one for the vision, another for the mission of the school. So these two frames, multiply it by the number of rooms that the university has in total, that's quite a lot of money. And you have to add it all the seminars and buy-in seminars and training, promoting all these things that the school stand for. The chief finance officer will scratch, well, I would always scratch my head every time I would be presented with the proposal to approve an expense for these kind of things. Next is employee buy-in, ownership, that is related to clear articulation of goals. You make sure that your company, your employees are in line or aligned with the values that you believe in. You empower them, because only empowering employees will provide a sense of ownership for them, sense of ownership. And empowerment and providing sense of ownership, again, is not an easy task. Next is the innovation, collaboration. Oh, how are businesses innovating? Businesses are innovating through adoption of new technologies, which again entail huge investment. Before, in my early years, when I prepare my financial statements, I was just using Excel form, Excel. So it takes me a while to finalize reports. So we have to innovate. We have to invest in systems, in accounting systems, wherein in just a click of a button, we can come, the reports that we need will be made available right away. So how does math again come into the picture? I wouldn't have to tell you about it. Collaborations. Continuously finding ways to add value. So you should collaborate, you partner. So you share revenues with partners in the hope that by doing that, you earn more. Collaboration, partnership, merger. The 1 + 1 = 2 isn't correct. In collaboration, the correct equation is 1 + 1 = 3. That through collaboration, you achieve more. You gain more revenue. You have widened your reach. You have increased your branding. And lastly, of course, to be sustainable, you have to be consistent with your messaging. How do you do that? Avail of any relevant platforms. And to do that, you have to set aside budgets. Bombard your customers with marketing promotions. If you are a company that is positioning itself as green, as socially responsible, then you must devise messages that will support that kind of positioning. So you must be active in environment advocacy causes. You must sponsor activities that are geared towards supporting the environment, like tree planting, like developing programs that would reduce carbon footprints, all those things. Again, where does math come into the? How does math come into the picture? By allocating budgets, by making sure that what you spend is less than what you are going to make. So with that, I will move on to the next slide. Which is about applying math during difficult times. See, our previous slides, actually, if you haven't noticed it, actually showed a path, how the business operates, or the cycle of the business, or the path that business takes. So if you would go back later on now and notice the flow of discussions that we are having, it actually presented a pattern. We started with a slide that shows how to start a business, how to start an investment, and then another slide that somehow embodies maturity, the peak of the business, how to be sustainable. This particular slide actually is part of that path. When businesses are experiencing difficulties, how does math come into that picture? So difficult times in business is best exemplified by the havoc that this present pandemic has brought to us, to the whole world. However, let me emphasize that even under normal circumstances or under normal conditions, businesses actually are from time to time experience harder periods, because all businesses have to go through what we call a business cycle, where there's growth, there is peak, there is maturity, and then there is decline. And having a good understanding about math, understanding about numbers, will actually help you prepare for these eventualities. Executive worth his salt might be aware of this cycle, and by doing so, must put in place some measures to prevent or avoid or avert a further catastrophic end result. So, for businesses that are affected by COVID, those that are closed, or before it closed, I remember I was in the US when COVID started. Our business was into medical or healthcare, so we were not very much affected. We were actually growing during pandemic. My boss made millions during the pandemic. But unfortunately, for some businesses, the case may not be true. I've seen in the area of Illinois, businesses that closed, people without jobs. So how would companies address, executives address during these times? First is, of course, cost reduction. This is always the first thing that executives do: reduce cost. Because by reducing cost, the aim is to preserve whatever cash is left in the coffers, whatever cash is left in the bank. Stop unnecessary expenses. If executives were traveling back and forth once a week, then as much as possible, reduce it to once a month. So this, the concept of cost reduction comes in. Unfortunately, I have noticed for businesses, most businesses, when they go into cost reduction, the first thing that they cut are the expenses that greatly affect the people at the bottom, which should not be the case. Which should not be the case. It should be the last thing in the hierarchy of reducing cost. What should be cut last are the things that apply to the people at the bottom. But unfortunately, that's not how it is done. So examples of cost reduction are executives taking pay cuts. Half of their salaries are gone. They only receive one-fourth, one-half. It's cost reduction. What else? Marketing activities are stopped because marketing expenses take a big portion of the expense pie. So to reduce cost, that's one of the first to go out. Benefits are reduced. And worst comes to worst, employees are getting laid off. So where does math come into the picture as far as cost reduction is concerned? It's all plus and minus. Next is addressing this difficulty of time by putting in more capital. So when cash is low and the owner of the business still wanted to preserve the business, the best thing to do is infuse capital. Because by infusing capital, because during difficult times, cash is always the main problem. Cash to pay for salaries, cash to pay for rent, cash to pay for whatever expenses that a company would spend to support its operation. So to address that, owners or investors are compelled to put in additional funds. But during hard times, of course, some businessmen probably own more than just one businesses. And during hard times, these businesses, or probably all of their businesses, are being affected by the crunch. So putting in more capital may not be a very welcoming alternative for some businessmen, for some people. Risking their own money to save their business may be a bit unwarranted, if not a good idea for them. So what they do is they resort to borrowing. But borrowing during hard economic times is very difficult to obtain. Cost is high. And very few banks would normally scrimp and very strict in providing loans to businessmen during hard times. So how does math apply in all this? Well, it involves cash. It involves preserving cash. It involves putting in more capital. It involves borrowing. You would see a lot of mathematical actions happening in there. A lot of multiplication, a lot of subtraction, sorry, a lot of comparison. If banks are charging 12% a year interest, and I was an owner with a cash deposit in a bank that provides me 2%, what would you do? Would you choose to take your cash from the cash? You take out your cash from the bank, which gives you 2% a year interest, and put it in the business, or just borrow from a lender that would require you to pay 12% interest and put that money into the business? Which would you choose? See, this is how math helps you in your decision making. Of course, in the US, there is another one that would help, that helped businesses and individuals, for that matter, in coping up with the COVID crisis. There was funding that came from the government, federal funding that came from the government, which is provided free of charge. So you guys in the States were lucky. But for people in other countries, this thing was non-existent. They were left to fend for themselves and given the option to either close, lay off workers, borrow money, or infuse capital. Okay, so let's move on, Mike, to the next slide. So from difficult times, let's move on to keeping the business operation run smoothly. This is what every employee, every executive would like to happen in their business. Business that runs smoothly, with problems that are easy to solve, that are easy to address. So how does math play a role in keeping the business operations run smoothly? By simply adhering to long-established standards, by following certain measures and formulas, and first is by having an appropriate working budget. We've mentioned already this thing before, in this budget, in our previous slide. So I will just go directly to identifying how does budget, the types of budget, which again requires a lot of mathematical activities. So there are basically 4 common types of budgets. One is the incremental budget. The other is the zero-based budgeting. Third is the activity-based budgeting. And the last one that's so popular is the value proposition budgeting. So what is incremental budgeting? And where does math again come into the picture? Incremental budgeting is simply using last year's actual figures, then add or subtract certain percentage from it to obtain the current figure. So again, you take the last year's budget, last year's actual figures, and this last year actual figures was a result of a long drawn process of hard discussions with people involved in the process, in the budget process, with a lot of subtraction, with a lot of addition, all things. And for now, you just simply add or subtract a percentage. For example, your budget from last year for salaries and wages is $100,000. Incremental budgeting would just simply let you add 10%, if that is what is being agreed upon, all the 100,000. So for this year, you will have $110,000 as budget for your salaries. Is that $100,000 enough to pay the salaries of your current employees? Of course, yes. But what if you would require an additional manpower for this year? Will 10% be enough to cover for that additional salary? So do you design? And that is actually one of the disadvantages of using incremental budgeting. Its inability to address actual scenarios. So next is the zero-based budgeting. What is zero-based budgeting? Simply, by the name, by the term itself, it assumes that expenses have to start from zero, that sales has to start from zero, assuming that you assume that the business is on its first year of operation, that no figures are going to be considered, whether it's from the past or most likely from the past. So you start with zero. Like for example, you devise a budget for expense salaries. Let's stick with that example, salaries. So if last year was 100,000, when you use incremental budgeting, you simply just add 10% if that is what is being agreed. So right now, for incremental budgeting for this year, the amount will be 110. For zero budgeting, you disregard or ignore the 100,000 from the previous year. You start with zero. So how will you come up with the budget for this year as far as the salary is concerned? What you do is you first identify all the people or all your employees. Who are these employees? So how much are they paying? How much are they being paid? Sorry. So you assign each one. Okay, this is the operations manager. The operations manager is receiving this much, 5,000. This marketing manager is receiving $4,000 a month. This staff is receiving this much. So you pick up a particular cost, and then you assign the value. Zero-based budgeting is also otherwise known as the bottoms-up budgeting. So another example is the activity-based budgeting. If zero-based budgeting is bottoms-up, activity-based budgeting is what we call the top-down budgeting. So bottoms-up, start from zero, and it goes to, okay, you add up all the salaries of the people that are already existing or that are already working for the business, and it totals to say 90,000, and you are planning to hire 2 more people for this year, receiving a salary of 5,000 each. So that's going to be another 10,000. So that 10,000 salary expected for the additional 2 people that will be hired for this year, you add it up to the salaries of the people who are already existing employees, and that's how much you would come up as a budget for that salaries for this year using zero-based budgeting. So it's very different from the incremental budgeting method. Now, next one is again is activity-based. So if zero-based is top bottoms up, activity-based is the opposite. It's top-down budgeting. It starts from top and then going down. So how does it? How is it being done? Like, I were the executive, I were the president, I would say, okay, our revenue budget, I would just simply say, our revenue budget, of course, it's easier said than done. You probably had your assignments, your homeworks done beforehand, before coming out with some figures. But for example, for purposes of simplifying things, so if I were the president, I would call for a meeting with the salespeople, and I will tell them, okay, our target revenue for this year is $1 million US. Where did that figure come from? We don't know. But most likely, it has some foundation to it. So, having set that $1 million US as the desired revenue for this year, we go down one by one, identifying the activities that will support in achieving that 1 million desired results. So how would you do that? Okay, so if we are selling things, if we are selling products, so we determine how much is the profit margin. How much are we selling the product? Is it going to be 50% of its purchase price or its acquisition cost? So we go down one by one. So that is just simply identifying the cost of goods sold. And then you go further down, which is the operating expenses. So for us to be able to attain $1 million US sales revenue, we would have to bombard the airwaves. We would have to bombard, sorry for that, we will have to bombard the television. Well, it's not very common anymore, but just for purposes of simplifying things, we will have to bombard television with TV ads and all. So you assign a specific value for that. Okay, we have to assign marketing for promotion $100,000. And to achieve the sales of this much, we need to open up a branch, another branch. So you have to set aside a budget for setting up a branch. So that is activity-based costing. If I ask you, where does math is in those examples? Oh, it's very obvious. I don't have to tell you those things. I don't have to tell you that. Okay? So the last one, which is not very common, is the value proposition budgeting. I don't want to. I don't want to go further with this method because, like what I've said, it's not common. So for budgeting, there is such a thing as revenue budget. There is an expense budget, and there is capital budget. So it requires, like what I've been mentioning, to come up with a budget. It doesn't come out of thin air. It requires, it entails time, a lot of time. Budget meetings alone. I had budget meetings alone would take months, 1 month, 2 months, to be able to finally agree on the figures. I have even experienced accounting manager and sales manager shouting at each other. Because of defending their positions. So aside from budgeting, we have financial reports. Okay. So when we talk about financial reports, we are talking about the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow. Okay, and Mike will show you some examples of what an income statement look like, what a balance sheet look like. It's very tiny, so please bear with us. Yeah, who cares? Anyway, it's really very small. So I will just tell you what an income statement is. An income statement, of course, gives you an information relating to how much the business make. So it has sales above. You subtract the cost of goods sold. You have the gross profit after that. And the gross profit, you deduct all the operating expenses, and you will come up with the income from continuing operations. And then income taxes and all the expenses down under and all the other income down under, and it will give you what we call the bottom line performance. The bottom line performance is either the business makes money or the business did not make any money at all. So it's either it's in the red or in the black. That's what we commonly term it. If it makes money, it's in the black. If it doesn't make money, it's in the red. So, okay, this final output, this income statement, may look simple, but again, I couldn't overemphasize the fact that these figures are just the summary. Every day, recordings are being done. Sales are recorded every day, added every day, to be able to come up with this 6,500,000 figure. Cost of goods sold and all the rest are the same. It involved a lot of recording, a lot of computation, a lot of addition, a lot of subtraction. The same thing happens for balance sheet. And through this balance sheet and cash flow as well. So next is performance measures. How does math play a role in keeping the business operations run smoothly? By resorting to performance measures analysis, by always keeping tab how the business measures up to its goals, plans, and also by faring, how is it faring against its competitors? And how do you do that? How do you measure performance? How do you measure performance? Again, by using formulas, by using those ratios that we have just mentioned or that we have mentioned earlier on. Like, okay, you want to measure how is Mike, can you please go back to that income statement? Okay, so you have the sales of 6,500,000. You have cost of goods sold of 4 million. So by making an analysis, performance measure, this will tell you that in every dollar sale, 30% of that is actually the cost of your merchandise. 30%. So it's 30%. And by that, out of the 6,500,000, your gross profit is 38%. So is that good enough for you? That in every dollar revenue that you make, 62% of that, or a little more than 60% of that, is the cost of what you have just sold. So that means your profit margin is only 38%. So that's how you measure performance. Is 38% profit margin good enough? And how would you measure it against the competitors? What if the competitors are making more than 38%? So your goal will be what? We have to reduce our cost. If our cost is 62% from our revenue, we will probably be able to find ways to lower it down. How to lower it down? Oh, because we source our products from countries that are expensive. So how about exploring it from countries like China, where products are so cheap? So this is what you do. Or probably when you purchase your inventories, when you purchase your stocks, you probably do it many times. And doing that will enables you to forfeit your discounts, because buying in bulks or establishing good relations with your suppliers are actually, can be beneficial. You can negotiate for a better pricing. You can negotiate for a better discounts. So with performance measures, you can actually do a lot of things already to better improve the performance. You can go improve your price, increase your price to be able to have higher revenue. So you can always play around. That's how performance measure help in decision making. I cannot give you a better example than that. And lastly, you have compliance. Oh, when we talk about compliance, that is, we do our fair share of making everybody around us happy and satisfied, with the regulators, with our employees. So how does math again play into this thing? We measure how much are we paying. We measure how much are we spending. will measure how much will go to the will go to the government, that kind of thing. So it requires a lot of mathematical activities. And with that, I will close our discussion, close our engagement, close our whatever this thing is called, with the last slide. So when the business cycle is finished, from start, from uh, uh, growing to peak to maturity to decline to some problems, and then there is no way but to go up again, and the cycle continues, and the things that we have just done gets repeated again. So that's how businesses operate. It doesn't operate of a one-time off thing. It's a cycle. It continues. It gets repeated again. So, and with that, math is always there. It never goes down. And the good thing about with math is using it. It provides a concrete figures, examples. You can quantify things. It gets things measured up, and when things gets measured up, it gets done. When executives desire to achieve 30% increase, that 30% increase, it gives you an idea. It gives you a concrete figure that 30% should be done. It should be achieved, and when it gets done, you get rewarded. And when it gets rewarded, bosses are happy, investors are happy, and you do it all over again. And thank you very much for all your time. I'm so sorry for keeping you up very late. Blame it on Mike. Ask for your refund of payments from him. And I hope you've learned a lot from the things that we have just talked about. And yeah, if you have questions, I don't know, Mike, are we still up for some question and answers?
Yes, actually there are actually 7. You can answer them as fast as you can. Okay, please bear with us with this a few minutes more probably. So the first question is, I think this would be related. The question is from the Philippines actually. How to secure an e-certificate?
An
Do you
A?
have any e-certificate, an electronic certificate probably for business?
Okay, I think it has nothing to do with math.
Do you have any idea about it?
Yeah, actually, that's very foreign to me as far as I'm concerned. The
Okay.
e-certificate thing, because yeah, as a CFO, certificates that I'm very familiar with are the certificate from the BIR, the certificate from the Board of Investment, if you can get some exemptions from them, the certificate for clearances from government regulators, and some certificate from whatever seminars and trainings that I send my people to. So
Okay.
yeah, I could not answer actually
Okay.
that question
Well,
well.
I'll probably contact the person again. Which kind of certificate is it? Okay. So let's
Yeah,
move
because
to
it could be mean a lot of things.
yeah. Let's move to the second question. So, what do you suggest or recommend to businesses who failed after their first year in operation? How do they strategies to open up again?
Okay, if they have plans of it's very hard to uh, keep something alive if it's already dead.
Okay.
So if there was an intention of keeping the business, then by all means, the investor must find ways to keep it for a while. Don't make it die, because it's really very hard. Branding will be lost.
Mm-hmm.
Brand equity will be lost, and it will require a lot of investment to be able to regain the trust and confidence of the people. So my suggestion is, if you have plans of keeping it alive, then keep it alive. Just even if it's non-operational, just don't close it. Because if you do, it's dead already, and you revive it again, it will be very expensive. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. But you have lost a lot of grounds already, and it will require you a lot of investment. Permits only. Processing the papers, it would be difficult already.
Mhm. Okay, thanks, Alex. Okay, for the next question, have you also used gut instincts rather than or in addition to business data or information in making business decisions? Probably experience using gut instincts.
I have never, in my years of experience as a CFO, I've never trusted my guts. Well, I use guts and instinct as a deciding factor. Or when everything else is already equal, when everything else is when I just need something that kind of validate and support what I want. But again, this is already after getting all the data that I need. That's where the gut and the instinct comes in. So it's really more of an icing, but not as the primary basis
For
for using
decisions.
the decision. I can share you a story. When uh, I opened when we avail of a simulator, an Airbus A320 simulator, and this is very expensive. We purchased it for $10 million to acquire this thing. There was actually no gut feeling involved there. It requires hard data, hard information, hard knowledge. Uh, we make sure that we have everything in place. We have contracts already being signed from airlines company. We have everything's everything was planned. The gut instinct that somehow kind of became applicable to me is when I worked with LBC. Uh, when I first made a proposal with the owners to expand in the Middle East, that's where instinct played in a very big role in my decision. But that was in the initial stage. But again, that instinct was still being founded by the fact, supported by the fact that I know very well that the Middle East has the most number of Filipinos working abroad. So it's already scientific even. It's already scientific that the LBC clients are Filipinos working abroad. So why does LBC not open a branch in, why did it take so long for LBC to open up a branch in the Middle East when it has the biggest numbers of Filipino, of OFWs, of overseas Filipino workers? So it's not instinct. It's instinct, but it's founded by some proofs already.
Mm.
That's the closest that I can somehow share.
Okay. So next, thanks, Alex. And then text is, how and where do you gather data before implementing a business?
Okay, that is actually where feasibility. That's why when you first put up a business, there is that thing we called conducting a feasibility study. So by doing a feasibility study, you really go around, interview people, do research, go to the library. Okay, I will share you. When I first opened up Taiwan, when I first opened up our branch in Taiwan, when I was still with LBC, I had no idea what Taiwan is. I had no idea the composition of of the people, the Filipinos. How many Filipinos are there in Taiwan? Where in Taiwan will I go? Which branch in Taiwan will I set up our first branch there? I have no idea. And the language barrier is also another thing. So for me to be able to obtain data, I traveled to Taiwan many times over. I stayed there for 1 week, do research. First thing what I did is, I need to see some Filipinos in Taiwan. Where will I find the Filipinos? I just don't know where these people live. But I know that Filipinos on Sundays would love to go to church. So what I did was is I have to research where are the churches, Catholic churches in Taiwan are. And these churches, when I had the list already, I assigned one Sunday in the church, another Sunday in the church, and I observed. And I talked to the Filipino people. So that's how I do. I even went to the embassy of Taiwan, well, which is called MECO. They don't have an embassy. The MECO in TECO, sorry, the Taiwan Economic Cooperation Office in Manila. I did some research, requested for some information. That's how you obtain data.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Alex. And last three questions. Bear with me, Alex. On a day-to-day operation of a business, what are the important ratios? I think you mentioned it earlier in your presentation. The ratios you would recommend to business owners to see if, what's this, to make sure the business is doing good. What ratios? Probably one or two ratios you
Okay,
would recommend.
it's easy. Ratios would be because the greatest measure of there are a lot of ratios. There are performance ratios, liquidity ratios, leverage ratios, like what I've told you. Since the question was about performance, so my answer would be the performance ratios. And the performance ratios, best commonly used performance ratios are profit ratio, how much is the profit being made out of every dollar sale that was done. Yeah, those are the performance measures, performance ratios, and there are a lot of them. And we can simply focus on the examples that I gave earlier, which is about determining assets, the investment, return of investment. But on a day-to-day basis, yeah, on a day-to-day basis, you can maintain that level of profit margin, because that's the easiest available thing for you. I mean, readily available for you. You just simply click a button on your system and see and print out an income statement, and from there you can already do some performance measures
Okay.
analysis.
Okay. Hope that answers your question. So numbers. Okay. Last two questions. So how do you borrow money from a bank to be used for your business investment?
Borrowing money from the bank is not easy, let me tell you,
Mhm.
especially in the Philippines, because and especially defense, because banks require existing relationship with its loan proponents.
Mm.
So if you are new, if you don't have an existing relationship with the bank, it's very difficult for you to avail of a loan from a bank. So the best thing to do is, if you have personal accounts with that bank, that would help, because that would already show some history. That would already give you an existing relationship with the branch manager, with the people in the bank. So you know already the people in the bank. So you can easily speak your way out, talk your way out of wanting to get a loan. Uh, Another is you look for referrals. You probably have friends or relatives that know someone from the bank, because once the bank established once the bank established the uh, they follow certain formulas. When granting a loan, they have this uh, C's that they call the character of the person, the capability of the person to pay. They have to establish those things. So if you have relatives or know someone that can refer you to a bank executive or someone from the bank, that already settles one of the C's, the character of the person. So all the bank has to do is determine whether you have the capability to pay, and the capability to pay can be supplied by providing the bank with your 5-year cash flow plans, budgets, and all. So yeah, that's how the way to move forward as far as borrowing a loan from the bank.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. And then last question. What is your treatment of expenses in innovation and research? Should we just consider it a sunk cost, or should we expect that it should have a return?
Oh, there is already a ruling. There is a standard that we follow for that. How to recognize uh, cost in this nature. So I'm not going to go into the details of how you can best get this information from your external auditors, because if you insist on your own way of either capitalizing it or recording it as an outright expense, and if any of those two methods violate the established reporting standards, your auditor will either reject it or make the recommendation for you to follow. So there is already a ruling, there's already a standard. The International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, have a comprehensive uh, 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 advisory for the treatment of expenditures relating to uh, capex, that is innovation and uh, technology.
Okay. All right. So thank you. Okay, I think that's it. So before we close, do you have any final words to our viewers, and or do you want to promote? Probably you're still into consulting, or your accounting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I've stopped accepting consultancy work already, except for some urgent few friends that require immediate assistance in this matter. So I'm not going to advertise anymore that kind of service. What I'm going to advertise is my business, the
Okay, you can.
restaurant, the restaurant business that I'm getting into. So we are franchisee. We are the master franchisee of Wing It On. It is a chicken unlimited concept restaurant that is based in northern Luzon, specifically Tarlac. So we're bringing this business to the whole of Visayas and probably the whole of Mindanao later on. So depending on how things will go. So yeah, if you have relatives in Cebu, we'll be opening our first branch in Mandawi Times Square. So we're targeting 6 branches within this year, and in other areas, hopefully first quarter of 2021.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's it. You can shoot me an email if Mike will give you an email for urgent questions that I
Okay.
can help. I'm very generous. I'm very generous when it comes to sharing or advising people in the business.
Okay. All right. So I'll just share. Do you want to share your email, or or any Facebook
Oh yeah, Facebook.
company social media.
Companies, no, no, we're still in the process of putting that up, Mike. So I still don't have that company social media. So yeah, they can give you my ano, they can give you can give them my messenger.
Okay.
So
If they have
I'm
questions
available.
about franchising, okay.
Yeah, especially about franchising, we are open to subunit franchising for other areas as well. Even in Cebu, if there are interested people to go into that.
I think we have let me see. We have viewers from Iloilo, from where else? Tagbilaran and Tacloban and Biliran. So if
Oh
you are
yeah,
in
that's those are my target locations actually. I was supposed to travel to Dumaguete last month, but of course travel restrictions have prevented me to go there. So yes, those are good locations: Bohol, Iloilo, and Tacloban. Yes.
Tacloban, okay. So if you need to contact, just send me a message and I'll connect you to Alex. So okay, so there you go, Alex. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise in making a sound business decisions using mathematics. And this is a handful of information. So, anyways, people or watchers can watch this again as a playback in our social media account. So you can play it back later. If you're busy this morning, you can watch it later in the afternoon. And so we're ending our live um hosting today. And to our followers, thank you for watching us at Math Agility Live. See you next time. God bless everyone and stay safe.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mike.
Alex. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Keep safe, everyone.